I'm behind the wheel of a Ford Figo after a really long time, and just at the side of the first corner, this car makes me remember of how wonderful it is to drive. The chassis balance, the steering feel, they are just about excellent. And that brings me to the question, why does the Ford Figo not sell more? Why don't we see more of these cars on the road? But the reality of the situation is that the Ford Figo will spend most of its life serving as a city commuter. And as a city commuter, this car is supposed to be easy to drive and convenient. And to add a touch of convenience to the Ford Figo's package, Ford has reintroduced the automatic transmission, which we are reviewing here today. Reintroduced? Yes, that's right. The Ford Figo in its second generation was always available with some form of an automatic transmission. Now, it was originally introduced with a 1.5-litre 4-cylinder petrol engine with a dual-clutch transmission. Then, with the facelift came the 1.5-litre 3-cylinder engine and a 6-speed torque converter. Now, the thing is that with the 1.5 and a compact sub-4-meter body style, it doesn't fall under the tax benefits that the manufacturer gets, which are translated in its pricing. So for that very reason, Ford has taken that 6-speed torque converter from that iteration and married it to this 1.2-litre 3-cylinder engine, thus pricing this car a lot more aggressively, a lot more in tune with the Maruti Swift and the Hyundai Ioniq.
Here's a look at the prices of the Ford Figo Automatic. It has been made available only in the Titanium and Titanium Plus variant, priced at Rs 7.75 lakh and 8.2 lakh respectively, which is higher than the Grandite and Nios and marginally lower than the top spec Swift.
And compared to both its closest rivals from Maruti and Hyundai, this one gets a proper 6-speed torque converter, whereas the other cars get a 5-speed automated manual transmission or AMT.
The Figo is certainly priced well, but how does it drive? Let's get straight to it.
Its 96 horsepower 1.2-litre petrol engine is the most powerful engine in its class. But at the first drive review, we did mention that it was a bit slow to respond, at least initially, and didn't feel as lively as the Swift or the Grandite and Nios.
The good news is that thanks to its shorter gearing, that initial bit of delay is nicely masked, and this automatic complements this motor really nicely.
Now, the automatic has made the drive experience a lot nicer right from the get-go. Even the creep function in this car, or the initial takeoff without you pressing the accelerator, is very gradual and it feels very natural. It doesn't lurch ahead like, let's say, the Polo automatic, which we've experienced recently.
Now, while the creep function is gradual, when you get onto the accelerator, the pedal response feels a bit too sharp, and in stop-go traffic, you will find yourself backing off the throttle, and this does take some getting used to. On the flip side,
now this transmission is really smooth in its operations, just like how you'd expect an automatic to be.
So you don't notice the pause between shifts like you do in its rivals who get AMTs, and that makes city driving a breeze. It does have a peculiar character though.
And when you're gradually slowing down for a signal, you can feel the car go from third to second and second to first gear. And while this isn't jerky or uncomfortable in any way, you can feel it nevertheless.
Ford's claimed fuel efficiency figure of 16 kpl seems promising, especially at a time when fuel prices are at an all-time high. What's nice is that
this transmission also comes with a sport mode, and what it does is it keeps the engine spinning a lot higher, it keeps the gearbox in a lower ratio, thus you get quicker, crisper responses each time you flex your right foot. Okay, and when you want to take manual control over this gearbox, you can shift to sport and use the two buttons on the side to go up and down the ratios. It is quick to respond when you get used to it, but personally I found them a little fiddly to use, and I'd prefer leaving it in full auto mode and enjoying the convenience of this transmission.
One thing that I'm not a fan of is this drive select orientation. Because while parking or taking quick U-turns, I inevitably tend to engage sport mode rather than drive. And in sport mode, the initial response in the lower gears, which is nice and gradual otherwise, feels a bit too jumpy and too aggressive. And then there's the flat out performance, which is quite the opposite of what the engine specs suggest on paper. In a drag race to 100 kph, the Figo 80 is over a second slower than the Hyundai Grand i10 Nios, and the more responsive Hyundai fares significantly better in rolling acceleration tests too. Drive with a heavy foot and this engine will rev all the way till 6,500 rpm before upshifting.
And when you spin the motor, the engine does get quite thrummy. Now while the younger folk might enjoy this engine note, I'm not too sure if it'll have a universal appeal.
And while on the topic of refinement,
being a 3-cylinder, this engine is pretty refined. Although, if you are paying attention, you can feel some vibrations on the seat.
Also,
what's a bit unusual is the amount of road noise at speeds of 70 to 80 kilometers per hour, which is a bit intrusive.
the USP of the Figo, or rather any of the Fords on sale, is their ride and handling balance. And the good news is that it still remains one of the best in class. The steering of this Figo feels direct, it feels chuckable around corners, and this Ford certainly feels very sporty to drive.
Even the ride quality is quite good, and it takes the bad roads in its stride quite nicely.
The Figo's strong brakes also feel rather reassuring. Coming to its packaging,
Ford must also be lauded for taking the first step towards safety, and this car comes with a host of safety features like 6 airbags, ESP and a lot more. And while on the topic of safety, the Ford Figo Aspire from 2017 has been crash tested by Global NCAP and scored 3 stars. Now while the hatchback, the Figo, has not been crash tested, we expect a similar score, which is a bit higher than the Maruti and Grand i10's 2-star rating.
Well, the Figo is certainly well equipped when it comes to safety features, but let's take a closer look at the other equipment this Ford packs in. It's a shame that the Figo still doesn't offer Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, LED headlamps, keyless entry and other features which we've come to expect in cars of this segment. Now would probably be a good time to take a look at this Ford's exterior design. Based on the 2019 facelift version's titanium variant, this automatic version looks identical to the manual version with smartly styled alloys and the chrome detailing on the front grille. Overall, the Figo comes across as a rather handsome, well-proportioned car. While we are still out, here's something that will particularly annoy those who use its boot often. Because it misses keyless entry, it also lacks an electromechanical boot opener. So even if you have the key in your pocket, you can't simply open the hatch. You will have to unlock the boot from the key or from inside the car first, and only then can you access the boot. It is a reasonable 257 liters in size, and it is well shaped too. You can even fold the rear seat down to carry more cargo, although these don't split in a 50-50 or 60-40 ratio. Step into the cabin and it is an all-black interior with piano black highlights all around. Grabbing center stage is the slick 7-inch touchscreen and the cool Knoll finish climate control knobs. The driving position as before is sporty, and then there are adequate storage areas in the front too. Move on to the back, and taller occupants will have adequate knee and foot room, although headroom is at a premium. So should you buy one? The The Figo is missing the latest equipment and the package has started to feel a bit long in the tooth now. Yes, this Figo Auto promises much with class-leading power, a relatively sophisticated torque converter gearbox and a keen price tag, but somehow the package doesn't quite bowl you over. That being said, the Figo has its appeal in its fun-to-drive nature, strong build and class-leading safety equipment, which have been the prime reasons to be interested in this Ford hatchback. And now this new automatic transmission adds inconvenience to this long list of strengths.